Welcome to the Connected Enterprise podcast. This is Carl Lewis, your host from Vision 33, and my guest today is John Cerasani. John, welcome.
Thank
John,
you.
you've been what they call a serial entrepreneur. I don't know who penned that phrase, but it's a good one. And now you're a venture capitalist. Been a guy who started his own businesses, transitioned into other roles. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've done, where you come from, where you are now.
You got it. You got it. I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit in me. After college, I went working in corporate America, but I had that bug. I always knew I wanted to do my own thing. Eventually learned everything I thought I needed to in corporate America, went and transitioned to doing the exact same job off on my own, started my own insurance company, grew that company, and 9.5 years later, sold it to a private equity firm. Put me in a kind of a cool position because now it gave me the capital in life to not really worry about making money anymore, and kind of take that next chapter, maybe the next volume of life, if you will, and focus on helping other entrepreneurs grow. And that's what I'm doing with a venture capital firm. I'm not only infusing capital into their companies when they need it, but also offering some guidance and advisory as well.
Yeah. What'd you call that there? You said not the next chapter, but the next
the next volume, we'll say.
Next volume. I like that. I like that a lot.
Better way to look at it, right?
Yeah, it is. So especially we live a lot longer now, so it's more like a volume for sure.
Exactly.
So John, what is the transition like from working for somebody else and then starting your own business?
It's incredible, and in fact, I'm in the process. I think we'll probably talk a little bit more about this later, but I'm writing a book about the steps that need to be taken with that. And for me, I really focused on all the nuts and bolts, the blocking and the tackling of the job itself. I like to use football analogies. I played college football at Notre Dame back in the day, so I use football analogies. The blocking and tackling, the basics. All right. Do you know everything from A to Z at the occupation you're doing, at whomever you're working for? And not only do you know what you're doing, but do you know what your colleagues are doing, or your assistant, or the account manager, or any role you're not in? Are you capable of bringing this all in under one umbrella as yourself, and going out there and achieving the same kind of results you've been able to achieve working for someone else? It's tough, man. It's tough at first because if you're a person like me, I like praise. I like being told I'm doing a good job. You go start your own company, man. There's no one out there telling you you're doing a good job, except the balance in your checking account. If that's going up, that's your good job, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. Then you hire people. You got people working for you, and it's the old adage. Everyone's laughing at your jokes, saying yes to you, but you're their boss. You're the one signing their damn paychecks. so you never really know what's real. So for me, I think that really was a big challenge of going on my own, trying to find another way to channel my celebration. Find another way to channel the celebration. You know what I mean? I'm not going out to celebrate that big win at happy hour with the other guys in the office. I don't have my boss recognizing me at the weekly meeting for the big sale I made last week. You know what I mean? So for me, that is something. And even beyond that, I think just the camaraderie of working with people. I tend to be a people person. I try to make friends with the people I work with. We only got one life to live, and if you're spending this much of your time of your day, really more than your family at times, working in an office with other individuals, gosh, it sure would be nice if you're friends with them and knew a little bit about them. So you leave all that and you're on your own, man. You gotta find other ways to fulfill yourself in that regard.
One of my good friends, he used to say about owning his own business, he said, if you don't blow your own horn, you never hear the music. So
you know what? I'm going to steal that. I'm making a note here to write that one down.
He used to say it that way, because there's very few people would walk into his office and say, "Hey, boss, that was great, man."
Yeah. Well, and even when you grow a team, even when you get up going, it's almost an expectation. You know what I mean? It's like, take like Tom Brady. If he scores a touchdown in a game, he's not in the end zone doing backflips. Everyone kind of expects that from him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas if the 7th round draft pick that, you know, wasn't supposed to play that day, that, you know, barely made the team does it, you know, people are jumping for joy, right? As the boss, as the leader, they're looking you more as a Tom Brady than the other example.
Well, you played at one of my favorite universities. I only have a few baseball caps, and
Okay.
one of them is a Notre Dame hat. And
Awesome.
so I've been a fan since I was a little boy, since Ara Parseghian was the coach, if you can believe that.
Wow.
And
Awesome.
I used to get up on Saturdays to watch the game from the previous week.
Okay.
For the East Coast, they broadcasted the previous week's game every Saturday morning at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
So what position did you play?
I played tight end. So coming out of high school, I was a high school All-American. Had scholarship offers really everywhere, and chose Notre Dame. Grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, so that was kind of a little kid's dream coming true going there.
Absolutely. So from a tight end at Notre Dame, and now you're a venture capitalist. But
Right.
so tell me, you're a venture guy. What are you looking for when you look at companies to make an investment in?
Yeah. As far as the company itself is concerned, I'm looking for either a type of a business model that could either disrupt an industry, or more likely just exist within an industry and coexist with others that are there. What's going to make them special enough to stand out? I'll use something that's really easy to follow. People try to get into the clothing business, and they want to get into retail and sell their cool designs and their cool hoodies and their cool hats and their cool jeans, at Nordstrom. Join the frickin' club. Everybody does. Okay, that's not a business model. Okay, that's not a business model. But take a company like MeUndies, for instance, and they really did everything online and built a brand around them, and were able to do that. I'm not invested in that company either. It's just the first one that came to mind as something different. So I'll look at things from that regard, but then I'll also look at the founders. Does the founder have enough grit? Are they scrappy to get things done? Because the last thing I want is someone that's going to just spend money like it's damn water. I learned the hard way, really, my first 6 months in this, that some founders are just like, I would call them reckless. And I told a couple, you are borderline reckless with your behavior. You're taking other people's money and spending it like it's nothing, and God bless. I'm not talking about people like buying a Mercedes or making their car payments with the money. That's not what I mean. That's borderline illegal. That's not borderline reckless. I'm talking about people that are out there raising capital, and they don't have the business acumen to walk the walk. They're able to just talk the talk and talk in circles and try to convince people to write them checks. Well, they don't have really any plan. So you get these folks that might have that gift to gab, and might know someone that knows someone and have some credibility when they're out there preaching about this company that they have. But when it comes down to it, shoot, they don't know what they're doing. And buddy, you just took 800 grand from 3 different investors, and you don't have a real plan. You just talked a bunch of nonsense that isn't going to come to fruition. That to me is what's reckless. So I learned that really the hard way when I started off doing this, and I've really now focused in my evaluation on the individual himself. Is this the type of person that's going to get things done? Is this person going to do very little with a lot, or is he going to be able to do a lot with a little? Could he make a mountain out of a molehill in a good way?
Right.
I look for those characteristics.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure you find a lot of businesses where, they've been around for a long time, and they kind of reached the zenith 20 years ago and haven't really moved.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden it's a family-owned business, and the second generation is coming in. Do you find that that's an opportunity sometimes because the younger generation has got a lot more energy and desire to grow?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. Mostly I'm involved on the earlier stage venture capital. I am involved in some pretty major real estate deals, like for instance, the Newport Beach Marriott. I'm part of the investment
Yeah.
group that purchased that. There are some deals like that I'm involved in, but a lot of the earlier stage stuff, it's just not family businesses. And in fact, you might get people coming from well-off families that have generational wealth that are trying to branch off and do their own thing. And then they'll go look for partners like myself to go help them, bring them to that next level. Not that they don't bring enough to the table themselves, but they're smart enough to find strategic partners to walk in with. And what's really interesting about those kind of folks, and I'm sorry, Carl, I know this isn't exactly what you were asking me, but I kind of took it this way.
I like it.
Yeah. A lot of these guys, they'll have their own money. Okay, let's use this generational wealth. So you're in the fourth or fifth generation, and there's, they invented the question mark, and they're getting residuals off every time everyone uses the question mark or something crazy. You know what I mean? Like, these people exist out there. They don't need any venture capital money, but they know that they might not have it in them by themselves to take this where it needs to go. So they'll slice off, 10% of their company, and they'll put some kind of valuation on it and have investors put in skin in the game. But really what they're trying to do is have that person on the same side of the table as them to, act as a colleague or even an advisor, if it makes sense.
Do a lot of venture capitalists kind of take this, call it a board member type of role, where you stay actively involved and give advice and those sorts of things?
Yeah. So there's really two boards that make all the sense. There's the board of directors, which is a legal governing body that'll be talked about in the operating agreement, and there's voting rights and very, very specific jobs and responsibilities that those people have, and an authority that the people on the board have. Then there's also the advisory board, or the board of advisors. Two very different things. And it's almost shocking to me how people will use those terms interchangeably. The board of directors and the board of advisors are two totally separate things.
Right.
The board of advisors are typically what I was describing earlier, where you want to get people involved. Usually they're throwing in some money as an early stage investor or some type of an investor, and they're bringing more to the table. Maybe it's their network, maybe it's their resources, maybe it's their, an introduction to, whomever. And for that advisory board, there's usually some kind of compensation to the people that are on that in the form of like advisory shares. So maybe it's like 1/4% to, do this, and this, and it's vested over the next 2 or 3 years as a member of the advisory board. That's not uncommon. It is uncommon to be asked to do that. You have to be bringing something to the table that the entrepreneur sees in you to want you to be on that. And I'm fortunate enough to be on many of those. And I'm, happy to do that. I'm proud of that. The board of directors is different. The board of directors, it's usually people with a lot of skin in the game. Okay. So typically if a venture capitalist is on that, they let around. All right. So for any of your folks that watch Shark Tank, you get that seed money, then you get Series A round and a Series B round. And there's lead investors of each round, especially when you get to Series A and beyond. And those are typically, it really depends, but usually you're going to be well into the 7 figures as far as the check is concerned from that venture capital firm. All right. So if I'm going to go fund your company, if I'm a venture capitalist and I'm going to fund your company $5 million, guess what? I'm going to give you that money, and part of the criteria is that I have a board seat. Okay. Right. And oftentimes what you get is funds, venture capital funds that are in that mix. Usually it's not just one person's money. It sometimes is. When it's one person's money, it's considered a family office. Glencrest Global is just my money, so we're considered a family office. We're not a fund where we're pulling other people's money in. So you're not going to see us writing those kinds of checks in later rounds. Those are usually the much larger VCs that are a pool of multiple people's money.
So from your college experience, you learn a lot, when you're part of a team, and things of that nature, and you learn about stars and what they bring to the table. What is the stuff like that taught you about looking for founders, right?
Yeah, I mean, I will say when I first went into the workforce after college, before I was even an entrepreneur, I worked in sales, and you'd always hear these sales managers trying to find people that were former athletes. And I didn't really realize it at the time. I go, I don't know, why are people like that? You know, they're the obvious. Oh, he's an athlete. He's going to be, you know, out there working hard. And there's something to it, man. There is really something to that. If you played a sport in college, now, if you quit your freshman year because it was too tough, that don't count, man. That don't count. All right.
Yeah.
I'm talking people that stuck it out and worked their rear ends off and were able to get a college degree while fulfilling the rigor of whatever their sport is. And it doesn't have to be just football. I'm a little biased towards football, and I think it's even worse because football, you get the, you know, when you leave that practice field, you're sore and you're, you know, get the crap kicked out of you. But throw in any sport, you know, girls softball, tennis, whatever the heck it is. If you're able to go graduate from a 4-year university and fulfill the requirements of being on that team at the same time, not to mention if you're at some of the more prestigious academic universities, like I was at Notre Dame, and then I actually finished at Northwestern University. You're in the classroom competing against former valedictorians of high school. You're out there competing against the best of the best in that classroom, and you might not have had the grades without football to get into that school. So in that classroom, you're already competing, you're already fighting above your belt, if you will. And then on top of it, you're going to football practice 30 hours a week that they don't have to do. All right. So you're able to pull this off at an institution like that. I think it speaks volumes. So whenever I see an entrepreneur that did that, I'm invested with this woman that played volleyball at Columbia University in the Ivy League. Smart, very intelligent. I don't know if she would have got into Columbia in the Ivy League without volleyball. She probably would have gotten in somewhere good though, like a UCLA or something of that nature. But she gets into Columbia, played volleyball. Okay, here she is as this, 32-year-old woman. I'm listening to her talk. I go, you know what? She believes in her product. She knows what she's talking about. She's got the brains, and I already know she has the heart in her, at least, to take this to the next level. And that's the prototype of what I'm looking for out there.
Yeah, it sounds like discipline is a big part of it.
Yep, it sure is. It sure is. And by the way, the company I was just referring to is called Lightning Fit. Just in case 10 years from now it sells for $1 billion, you heard it here first.
You heard it here. Sounds great. John, I noticed in some of the stuff that you write about, you said there's a part of society that hasn't really caught up with the times in terms of career paths and things of that nature. What do you explain that for me?
Gosh, you look at societal conditioning. I like to use that term, societal conditioning, that's really happened since the beginning of time, right? But we've seen, especially in my opinion, the last 20 years, you've seen a lot of changes in terms of maybe what's acceptable from a family values perspective. Okay, just a lot of I'm going to call it evolution. I don't think it's digression. And my point is, you have an evolution of what expectations are. Okay, and society has really, again, evolved is the term I'm going to use, and I mean that term. Where have we evolved around, your professional behavior? Where have we evolved as far as your professional behavior? Where have we evolved in terms of your career path? All right, it's still the 1950s when we get to that. You're supposed to go work for someone. You're supposed to go climb that corporate ladder. You're supposed to earn that next job title up. The companies don't even have pensions anymore. People are like, "Oh, you work here for 40 years, you get their pension." Well, you better hope you're a school teacher or a police officer, because pensions really don't exist anymore. You know what I mean? So replace pension with 401k. Got news for you. You could take your 401k with you at your next job. All right. This is the framework that never evolved. It's the framework that we've been in since the beginning of time. It's never changed, like other areas that I mentioned earlier have changed. Okay. Being an entrepreneur, going out, being a risk taker, starting your own company. No one's talking about that. That's not okay to do. Ooh, gosh. I mean, I'll go back to the early 2000s. I worked at Arthur J. Gallagher. I had an area vice president title. I was 27 years old. Holy crap. They're big insurance giants. Happen to be based in Chicago, but they're international. My parents, oh, wait a minute, you're leaving that job? What are you, are you crazy? Our friend Norm's worked there for 30 years. You could be like him one day. And oh my gosh, I almost gave them both strokes. You know what I mean? Like why? You know, if I would have just stayed on that path, I would never have been able to be in the position I'm in today. I'd never be able to have capital that I have today to be helping people from venture capital standpoint. And I'd probably, not be invited to be on podcasts like yours, Carl. So, it's the societal conditioning that I think we are just way behind the times on. And, people need to wake up, because by the time society does catch up, it's 2080, 2090, and, we're not here anymore.
Yeah, for sure. A few years ago, I was asked by a group of college students, they were interns, how many different jobs I'd had through the years. And I've been one of these guys that's kind of moved around a lot, totally different things. And it was like 27, right? 27 different, maybe, industries that stayed the same for about 10 years at a time, then move on 10 years. But within those, constantly growing and changing and taking on new roles. And I remember, that young people seem much more comfortable with that than the typical individual. I don't think they see themselves like, I'm going to take the skills I had and kind of bury them here for the next 30 years. It's like they want to constantly be learning, be changing, be challenged. They want life to be more exciting than that. So I think you're right that the typical corporate atmosphere is not conducive to that. Doesn't allow for that much change, right? And that much flexibility.
Yeah, so, I agree with it. I love what you just said, and maybe it's a side consequence. What's the positive word for consequence? I guess I don't even know. Benefit, I suppose, of this millennial generation that is supposed to get whatever they want. You know what I mean? Maybe, they're used to getting whatever they want right away. Maybe they're switching jobs because of that, and the benefit of that, which was not even their intention, is that it's maybe changing that landscape of everything I just talked about.
Sure. We don't really have a school to go to become an entrepreneur, right? And to start your own business. But I know that you're writing a book called The 2000% Raise. That's right. Kind of about that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, you got it. Well, and you'd be shocked now, Carl. I've always laughed at this. I'm 45 years old. When I came out of college, I think these were just starting. I think University of Wisconsin had a program. I heard of a couple, but there's a lot of colleges across the country now that have majors in entrepreneurship. And I always thought that was kind of backwards. Oh, wait a minute, majoring in entrepreneurship. But I'm assuming the classes teach you about raising money and venture capital and things of that nature. But my book is not about that. My book is about enlightening the reader to look in the mirror, all right, to evaluate what part of the system they're playing a role in right now. All right. And that system is corporate America. See corporate America for what it really is. I talk about things like, people being loyal to companies that could really much fire them tomorrow. Most people are employed at will. They don't understand what employed at will means. I use a reference in the book calling it employed at ill instead of employed at will. Employed at ill, because that means you have no power. And it doesn't matter if you're the best sales rep and you have the best territory and you've developed it. If you get a new manager, a new boss, or a new boss's boss that, you rub the wrong way, all that could be taken from you. If you don't like it, well, you're employed at will. You don't have to work here. Okay. I get into that in the book and then talk about embracing what you're learning along the way while you're working for someone else. And ultimately, you're going to prepare yourself to go do the exact same job that you're doing today, but you're going to put yourself on top of that org chart instead of the CEO of the company you work for today. In that process, if you do what I did, you're going to give yourself a 2000% raise. All right. Now, I talk a lot about that. I talk about details in terms of what I later sold my company for and how that played out. I really use myself as a guide, but it's about the reader. And I reflect on different experiences of what I've picked up, along the way, and observations on corporate America. I got to tell you, Carl, I don't use this analogy in the book, but maybe I should go back and add it. It's the Wizard of Oz. All right. It is the Wizard of Oz. You pull back that curtain and there's just some little guy back there controlling things, making the lights go on and making smoke come out of its ears. All right. And corporate America has created this illusion for their employees that you need them to succeed. All right. That you need to be a part of this massive formula to get the clients, to give the clients the deliverables they deserve. So I'm really encouraging readers to take a step back, look past that. I call it the micro brainwash. Look past that brainwash and see things for what they really are. Then evaluate yourself. Can you bring these same deliverables to the client? If you can, here's the next steps you need to take to, to go out on your own. If you can't, why can't you? All right. Now, if you're Motorola and you're inventing technology and you don't have the wherewithal within you to do that, or billions of dollars to raise behind you, okay, maybe not. But is there a consulting type of a job you could use your experience therefore to go out on your own and do? Is there something in an ancillary industry that you could bring to the table? I think readers are really just going to walk away with their eyes wider opened and a confidence that they might not have had before.
That's great. Well,
Yeah.
John, I really appreciate your putting us into your schedule this week. I know it kind of fit together here, and appreciate it a lot. And this was fun.
Awesome.
And thank you much. And for everyone out there, till we meet again, stay connected.